This is 5 Live Formula One with Jenny Gow.
Well, hello and welcome to a very, very busy Formula One paddock as we get ready for qualifying for the United States Grand Prix. However, in the last few moments, we have had confirmation from Red Bull that unfortunately the co-founder of Red Bull, Dietrich Mateschitz, has passed away at the age of 78. Christian Horner spoke with me a little earlier, a few moments ago really, and just said that he sent his sympathies to the family and seemed pretty emotional. I've spoken to a couple of senior team members and personnel since then, and there is a real sense of loss in the Formula One paddock this afternoon. Andrew Benson, the BBC's chief F1 writer, is with us. And Andrew, he was a very influential man when it comes to this sport.
Indeed, Mateschitz was a reclusive figure. He hardly ever gave any interviews. In fact, I don't remember one that he did at all, certainly not in the English language. But of course, he owns 2 Formula One teams, and he's made the team that he founded by buying Jaguar back in 2004 one of the most successful of the modern era. And they've not only had incredible success through the early years of the 2010s with Sebastian Vettel. They started a new era, of course, the last 2 years with Max Verstappen. But they've also been huge global promoters of Formula One. Obviously their job is to sell their product, and Formula One is their main global marketing campaign. So they've helped raise the image of the sport and profile of the sport around the world as well.
Yeah, they certainly have. And you go up and down this paddock and speak to people about their connection with this Red Bull team, and there are very few people who don't have a story to tell and a reflection on it. But as you say, very few people in this paddock ever had the opportunity to speak to Dietrich Mateschitz. I remember asking him a question once, and I didn't get an answer. He carried on walking. It's relatively unsurprising. Jack Nicholls, our lead commentator, is ready for qualifying. But it can't be underestimated the significance of this moment within the Red Bull organisation and the paddock.
And it goes way further back than Red Bull Racing as well. I think that's what is so amazing. You know, Dietrich Mateschitz Red Bull started sponsoring Sauber in the early 1990s. I think they might have started with the sports car team, then came into Formula One and were a huge part of that as well. The Red Bull Young Driver program has created so many drivers in Formula One, but also outside of Formula One that have passed through the program itself, and again outside of Formula One. They've always been huge supporters of motorsport, full stop, and Mateschitz was a huge fan of it. And you go to, if anyone's lucky enough to have been to Hangar 7 just outside of Salzburg, Red Bull's sort of headquarters, the amount of racing cars that are in there, and airplanes in particular, were another passion of Mateschitz. And I think the amount of investment fundamentally that Dietrich Mateschitz put into motorsport cannot be underestimated for, who knows what return. As Andrew says, it's their main sort of sponsorship program. But if you were sort of just an accountant looking at it, is the way Mateschitz went about promoting Red Bull the correct way to do it and the most cost-effective way? Who knows? But it was a way that he was just unbelievably passionate about, and I think it's fantastic what he's done for motorsport over the last 30 plus years.
Christian Horner said to me earlier on, we're going to go out there, we're going to qualify and do our very best this weekend for Dietrich Mateschitz. We've got about a minute to go until the start of the session. And Andrew, just very quickly, what does this mean for the team going forward? Presumably their future is safeguarded regardless of this.
Well, Jenny, we don't know a definitive answer to that question. Of course, when any moment of this seismic nature happens, there's always going to be a period of uncertainty. I'm told there's no immediate threat to the future of Red Bull or AlphaTauri, and the co-owner of Red Bull, a Thai gentleman who was Dietrich Matteschitz's partner, Chalem Uvidia is his name. He's a big backer of Formula One as well. So there's no immediate reason to think that there's any threat to the future of those two teams.
Okay, session going to get underway in about 10 seconds time, so we'll give you the opportunity to sync. 20 drivers taking to the track. Only one of them will be in pole position, Jack Nicholls.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see who will be on pole position. It won't be Charles Leclerc. He has a 10-place grid drop, so although he looked like the closest threat to Max Verstappen earlier on, the 10-place grid drop will preclude him from taking that. But it looked really close. Jolyon Palmer, the former Renault Formula 1 driver and man who finished 13th in the 2016 United States Grand Prix here. It looked really close, and then all of a sudden Max Verstappen pulled out a lap at the last minute in practice 3 earlier on.
Right at the end, was it a warning for everyone else, or was it just one lap perfectly hooked up whilst others floundered? Many others weren't happy with their laps in practice, so there's still an element of unknown into this session, which has now begun with a few cars heading out on track. Albon, Latifi, Schumacher and Zhou. I think it's all to play for. Leclerc, 10-place grid penalty will rule him out of serious contention for now and probably for tomorrow. Perez has a 5-place grid penalty as well, so that's going to rule him out. So really, it's Verstappen v Sainz. What can Mercedes do? What can Hamilton do? Russell has looked slightly behind through practice. Can Hamilton get himself on the front row for tomorrow?
Zhou Guanyu is on the back foot a little bit, only did 3 laps in practice 3 earlier on today, so he has gone straight out in the Alfa Romeo. Magnussen, Albon, Latifi, Schumacher and Zhou, those 5 drivers, as Jolyon said. Everybody else sitting and waiting in the pit lane currently, as we have the first 18-minute session. The top 15 will go through to Q2 at the end of that, and then the top 10 will go through to the final part of qualifying. And sun is going to be a little bit of a challenge, I think, today for the drivers, as is track limits. We haven't had them deleted during the practice sessions, but particularly turn 19 and the final corner at the Andretti, they're the kind of 2 main spots, maybe even up over the crest at turn 9, but you tend to sort of lose time really if you're up out in the runoff area there. But 19 in particular has been somewhere where we've seen a lot of lap times deleted historically,
and a lot of people going over them through practice. It's really tricky conditions out there. The track is bumpy. It's particularly bumpy in the high speed. There's also a big wind. There's a tailwind through the high speed, and it means that the cars are very loose, so they're overheating their tyres a lot, and it means by the end of the lap, where track limits are in play, everyone's just sliding around and on the absolute edge of rear grip, and some small mistakes can just force you wide over track limits. It's not been a problem through practice, but now drivers are going to have to be really careful not to go over. We've seen it countless times now, haven't we, how one driver, even the best drivers, can do a lap that seems fine, and then suddenly they lose the lap for track limits. It can leave them in danger, even in Q1 or Q2.
Zhou is the quickest of the 4 drivers that have done a first sector at the moment. He is a 10th up on Albon and Latifi, a couple of tenths up on Mick Schumacher. He's just coming through the tight left-hander of turn 11 that brings him out onto the back straight, where he'll get to almost 200 miles an hour before hammering onto the brakes into turn 12. As I said, only 3 laps so far today for Zhou, as he comes hurtling down to that left-hander. No one else has left the pit lane just yet. We'll see whether he completes a lap or not, or we see sometimes drivers going out and doing a sort of fake lap and then coming back into the pits, as it were. And it's kind of not really a long or a short lap here, but it's certainly not a short lap. It's 1 minute 38, 1 minute 36 sort of seconds. So my point is, it's not like an Austria, but it's also not a Singapore. So we'll see how, and that will determine how many laps you can get in an 18-minute session. I'm making sense. I know you're both laughing at me, but I'm making sense.
Should we just call it a mid-length lap? It's on the longer side.
Do you think?
1 minute 37 is pretty long.
That's what I said.
You said it's not a long, it's not a short, but it's not that quick, but it's not that long either. Here comes Magnussen.
Thank you.
On a flying lap. Through the long sector 2. Big slide as he gets on the gas. Coming through turn 12. Tricky braking zone for 15. 13 and 14. It just kinks to the right and kinks to the left. Now through the quadruple apex right-hander. Magnussen foot flat to the floor. And now we're going to get to 19 and the Andretti. Big step of oversteer. He kept it within track limits still by just waiting for the throttle for so long. It's not going to be a great lap as a result for Magnussen here, but he accelerates to the line and goes 4th.
Nicholas Latifi did return to the pit lane, so he went straight back in rather than setting a lap time. His teammate Alex Albon did not. He did a lap. So it's Schumacher quickest on a 37.8. 37.8 also for Joe, a 37.9 for Albon, and a 38.1 for Kevin Magnussen. Those are the 4 lap times at the moment. Verstappen is just overtaking Sergio Perez as they come through the long right-hander, the quadruple apex right-hander. And Verstappen is winding up, getting ready to go for a first lap of the session for Max Verstappen. And of course we will see Charles Leclerc, because it's only a 10-place grid drop, we will see him competing throughout the whole session, as opposed to if it's a back of a grid, then sometimes you see them parking it in Q2.
And if he's fastest, he is technically the winner of pole position, isn't he? He just gets the penalty afterwards.
Well, I thought that, and I think it is true, but on Wikipedia it says Carlos Sainz was it says Carlos Sainz was on pole position for Spa. So I don't know if he gets the pole position. I need to check the stats.
The reason I asked that is an important question, because if he gets pole here or anywhere else for the rest of the season, Verstappen cannot win the pole trophy at the end of the year. It will be Leclerc's.
And you've declared that important.
Well, it's important because it's something that Ferrari are going to win this year. You know, you got to celebrate what you can when you're Ferrari this year, haven't you?
That's very true. Verstappen is through the first sector, half a second quicker than Mick Schumacher in sector 1, and half a second quicker than his teammate Sergio Perez through the first sector. Nicholas Latifi is the only driver in the pits at the moment. Charles Leclerc is just coming through sector 1 now, and he's quicker than Verstappen by 0.05 of a second. So rapid first sector for both Verstappen and Leclerc. In general, over the course of the day and the weekend, we've seen Ferrari quickest in the final sectors. That's where they've looked stronger compared to the Red Bull. Verstappen felt like he was quite close to track limits there on the exit of turn 12.
There's so many areas where you can be. It's big runoff that are tarmac around most of the corners of this fairly long lap. Verstappen through the quadruple apex, coming down towards 19, sweeps around Kevin Magnussen at 18, track limits at 19, but he's all good. Everyone's you can tell they're just a little bit more careful now on these opening laps, just not to get their limits deleted, their lap deleted for the limits. Verstappen goes 2 seconds quicker than Schumacher. They're going to have to press on a little bit more in turn 19 particularly, but they just want to get a banker on the board, particularly the Red Bulls.
Perez quicker than Verstappen in the final sector, so he goes second quickest, about 0.3 slower. Leclerc goes faster, a 1 minute 35.795, 700ths up on Max Verstappen's time. Norris slots into 4th place, and he's 1.3 seconds back from Charles Leclerc, so that's not a particularly rapid time there. Hamilton just under 0.2 adrift of Leclerc after the middle sector. Russell is going to come across the line first. He comes through the final left-hander at the Andretti. A little bit of a slide from the Mercedes, pops open the DRS and goes into 4th place. So George Russell, a 36.2, half a second adrift, 0.4 adrift of Charles Leclerc. Where is Hamilton going to go? He looked pretty quick over the course of the day so far. How competitive is he? 3rd, a 1 minute 36.1, so ahead of Perez, but a bit adrift of Leclerc and Verstappen.
That's a better job from Russell then, to just be half a tenth down on Hamilton for their opening gambits of qualifying. George had a difficult FP3 earlier on, and to be up there within 0.4 of the Ferraris and the Red Bulls as well is encouraging for Mercedes. I think Hamilton had a lot on the table on the exit of the final corner, again with track limits, and they just don't want to have the first lap time deleted and then need to perform something else later on in the 9 remaining minutes to make sure they're through. It should be plain sailing for those Mercedes, Ferraris and Red Bulls.
So Bottas jumps up into 6th place. Now the Alpine of Fernando Alonso gets ahead of Bottas, and the other Alpine of Esteban Ocon comes out of the final corner, and he goes up only into 12th position. One more realistic lap time to come. That's from Carlos Sainz, who's just coming through the first sector now. Latifi's been through the pits and is now on an outlap, so Latifi very much out of sync with everybody else at the moment in the Williams. The order is Leclerc, Verstappen, Hamilton, Perez, Russell, the top 5. Alonso, Bottas, Stroll, Gasly, Norris, the top 10, and then Vettel, Ocon, Tsunoda, Ricciardo, Magnussen, the top 15.
On the racing line in the 17, man, it was really dangerous.
Understood. So Verstappen lost time to Perez in the final sector and said that the Haas was on the racing line coming through turn 17. It looked a bit But it's difficult to know with 17 because you go quite wide towards the end of the corner.
I thought it looked all right from the angle that we've seen. It was Magnussen as Verstappen came around him. It depends if he was more in the way earlier on, because Magnussen exited to the inside and the natural line is to sweep around as Verstappen did. Sainz is the only driver not to do a lap time. He's doing one right now. He aborted his first push for some reason, so that's why he's a little bit out of sync. And Latifi is the other driver not to do a lap time, but he's done a push already and pitted rather than going straight out with the others and popping the time on the board.
Sainz into the final corner at the Andretti. This is going to be competitive here for the Ferrari man. Comes across the line, and it is quickest for Carlos Sainz by half a second. Quicker than Charles Leclerc. Feels a pretty big lap.
Okay, yeah. Good from Sainz. Ferrari's pole contender, whether technically or actually just starting at the front for tomorrow, depending on the ruling. But Leclerc has that 10th place grid penalty. Sainz is the man that can fight Verstappen for starting on pole tomorrow, and he's just laid down a bit of a gauntlet. Times are tumbling.
And those were some Ferrari fans in the grandstand there. I wonder if I'm going to see what Latifi's final sector is here, because it's only a second down on Sainz after the middle sector, Nicholas Latifi. A lot of corners in the final sector as well, but if he jumps up and is ahead of Albon, then you wonder if maybe there's quite a lot of track evolution going on as the sun begins to go down. 30 degrees air temperature, 37 degrees track temperature. Latifi across the line, and he does go quicker than Albon, up into 16th place, pretty much matching Esteban Ocon and Sebastian Vettel's time. So that's interesting.
Second set of tyres for Latifi, but even so, there is track evolution here. It's going to get quicker. There's a lot of wind out there as well, which has been blowing little bits of debris and bits and bobs onto the circuit, and just takes a lap or two just to wipe that sheen off the racing line and find the grip that was there a couple of hours ago for FP3 as well. So the times are going to be coming in and dropping quite quickly. I think Sainz has benefited by just going a lap later than everyone else, and that's why he's got half a second up the road.
Joe is having his lap time deleted, so he was up in 10th place, but he's going to have his lap time deleted, meaning the eliminated drivers at the moment would be Tsunoda, Albon, Ricciardo, Magnussen and Joe. Jenny Gow.
Yeah, just looking at Mercedes, Hamilton currently 4th, Russell in 6th place, and I think Mercedes believe this is a really strong opportunity for them this weekend. They have no grid penalties, whereas the counterparts do at Ferrari and also at Red Bull. And the car looks good. They feel comfortable and confident this weekend. And they haven't won yet this year. And their qualifying performance is a thing that hurts them. So they want to start as far up the grid as they possibly can to give themselves a really good chance of going out there tomorrow at a track, let's face it, that Lewis Hamilton absolutely loves, but hasn't won at since 2017, actually, which I found a surprise. But yeah, he'll want to go out there, he'll want to do his best, and the Mercedes they'd love a win this year.
His 2012 race-winning car was taken around in the lunch break by Zach Brown, the McLaren boss, and then I think it was a 2013 McLaren was being driven by Mario Andretti, aged 82, and the producer Paddy and I went up to the top of Phil Hill, and I'd tell you what, and Mario Andretti was going for it. He was on the brakes, his Albon's radio.
Did you see Lewis there? Yeah, Lewis turn 2.
Yeah, copy. I saw Hamilton turn 2.
That wasn't great from Hamilton. That blocking of Albon, it's not the most egregious thing I've ever seen, but it was a little bit wallowy around on the line.
It was a little bit, but Albon was still pinned through turn 2, and I don't think he really would have lost more than a couple of thousandths of scrub through there. Everyone's they're keen to dob each other in, the stewards, aren't they? We've had Verstappen on Magnussen, which didn't look particularly bad, and now Albon on Hamilton. Risky from Hamilton to be going slowly and not jumping more out the way, has to be said, but I don't think that was particularly bad from for Albon's point of view. Traffic is difficult around this circuit. There's so many things that are difficult. You've got the wind and the bumps around this high-speed track. Traffic and dealing with that is very tricky. Through the first sector, it's a sequence of S's, and once you're in the track for the first part, it's very difficult to then just get massively out of the way. You pretty much have to just leave the whole circuit to just scramble out of the way and not get a penalty. And the final sector's the same, where Magnussen was with Verstappen through that quadruple right-hander. You don't get a great eye line of who's coming up behind you, so you do just have to be told by your engineer and react very quickly. The other thing, the sun is low. And even for us in the commentary box, it's coming in. I'm a little bit dazed looking into it. I'm not driving a Formula One car into the final corners with tyres overheating, track limits on the edge. It's going to make it really hard.
Apparently George Russell was saying yesterday it really was hard. So it's a bit different from Abu Dhabi, where you get there's the odd corner where the sun's a bit of an issue. Here it's like, I think this is the latest qualifying session there's ever been at the Circuit of the Americas, and it's basically because the area is so flat, and
the sun in that big old Texas sky.
Big old Texas sky and all those cliches. It's a problem at quite a lot of corners around the lap.
I can't tell you how hard it is when you're driving. In Melbourne is a classic one where the sessions are very late and the sun comes down, and you have to concentrate so hard to find your reference points. And we can see it now just on the visor of all the drivers, just the reflection of the sun as they're turning into half the corners basically, and it is directly into that final corner, which is one of the track limits ones on the last run when the tyres are going to be overheating. Jenny?
Yeah, I can tell you it's hot, because that's exactly my view. I'm just looking towards the last final corner and it's like, ow, my eyes. Charles Leclerc, a little bit of frustration from him. The team asked if he could come in and box, and they just got to him too late, so he had to go round, do another lap. And then he got pulled in and had to do Weybridge as well. So a little bit of annoyance that he was just slowed down in what was their preferred plan, although the man from Ferrari currently running in second spot, and both of the Mercedes have headed back out on their used set of soft tyres.
Yeah, I don't think anything really will change for Leclerc, because he will be through to the next part of qualifying, and I imagine Sainz, Leclerc and Verstappen and Perez will remain in the pits at the moment. So a minute 40 left on the clock. The final lap's about to come in. The order is thus: Sainz, Leclerc, Verstappen, Hamilton, Perez the top 5, Russell, Alonso, Bottas, Stroll, Gasly the top 10, Norris, Schumacher, Vettel, Ocon and Latifi the 15 drivers through at the moment. Eliminated would be Tsunoda, Albon, Ricciardo, Magnussen and Zhou. But Tsunoda in 16th and eliminated is 0.2 slower than his teammate Pierre Gasly, who's in 10th. So it's pretty tight.
There are some drivers with a lot of work to do in the tight field. The McLarens aren't looking too rosy at the moment. Ricciardo's down in 18th and struggling. Has to put in a big lap here. I think everyone does, because the evolution of the track is that much. Ricciardo's first sector is not magic on this lap either. And Norris is 11th in the other McLaren as well, which says as a team they're not performing that well. The other driver that's a surprise down there is Esteban Ocon in the Alpine, that's going really well in the hands of Fernando Alonso, who's looking fairly safe up in 7th. Ocon's 14th and has to dig one out here.
40 seconds on the clock. Who's going to be the first across the line? I think it's going to be Tsunoda then. He is currently in 16th position. Well, actually, Vettel's a little bit ahead of him on the circuit now. Tsunoda's coming through the final sequence of corners into the left-hander of turn 19.
Schumacher's going to be in big trouble. He's 12th and he's not improving. He's aborted this final lap and he's going to get shuffled almost certainly out.
Through the final corner comes Yuki Tsunoda on the power, 15 seconds to go. The Japanese driver crosses the line, goes up into 9th place. That's a solid lap, that, from the AlphaTauri squad. So Schumacher looking in trouble in 14th. Ocon at the moment is in 15th. And Gasly has just jumped up into 8th position. Latifi flying through the first couple of corners. Checker flag is out. At the moment, Latifi, Albon, Ricciardo, Magnussen and Zhou would be eliminated, but they're all improving.
Williams is good in a first sector. Latifi and Albon both quicker than most of their rivals through that part of the lap. What can they do through the rest of it? They're going to be the last to come through.
Ocon only 14th, slower than Stroll and Ricciardo. That could be a challenging one for the Alpines. Magnussen jumps up into 13th place, so Ocon is 15th and on the bubble at the moment. Norris is improving and surely going to get out of it. Albon's got a shot at getting through into Q2, as has Zhou Guanyu, even though he didn't improve in the middle sector.
Norris up into 8th place. Ricciardo is on the bubble and in big danger here. Ocon is out, Schumacher is out, Latifi probably will be out. What can Albon do and what can Zhou do?
Here comes Zhou across the line, and it is jumped up to 10th place for Zhou, ahead of Bottas. So Ricciardo is eliminated in Q1. Magnussen is knocked out too, because Albon goes up into 5th place. So Alex Albon up into 15th position, I should say, sorry. But that's enough to see him through into the second part of qualifying. Magnussen 16th, out. Ricciardo 17th, out. 18th, Esteban Ocon, out. Schumacher in the Haas, out. Latifi out in 20th place. So bad news for, well, Ricciardo, but we're kind of not used to that, but used to that. Ocon. It's a bad one from Ocon. And Schumacher must have made his mistake right at the start of the lap.
Yeah, he blew it straight away. And Mick had done a good first run. We're going to get a replay now. It's the sound you can hear of Mick into turn 1.
Oh, huge spin, full spin for Schumacher, full 360.
Yeah,
It's
and
got on the
still
power
came
on
in.
the exit of turn 1.
He was wide into the corner. He'd carried too much speed in. Then he was wide. Then he caught some bumps that you wouldn't find on the apex, but carrying more speed around the outside of the apex just sent him into a full loop. And actually, drivers are lucky there wasn't a yellow flag, because he managed to do a full 360 pirouette and get going before anyone else had their lap scuppered. So Schumacher just taking himself out with that spin. Not good for his career prospects. 19th. Magnussen actually did a good job to be 16th, but was also shuffled out by Albon. And Ocon, really, the surprise there. He's looked all right through the weekend. He's been a bit hit and miss in qualifying recently, Esteban Ocon.
Yeah, and it's another one where Aston Martin looked really strong earlier on in the day, and then they're 11th and 14th, both through, but...
Okay, Daniel, so cars eliminated, we're 17th.
Understood. It's real.
That's good for Aston Martin, though. Both cars through into Q2.
Well, yeah.
Often there's one out in Q1. This time they're 11th and 14th, and both can have a view to getting through into Q3. The gaps are still so tight there. 3/10 from Stroll would get him ahead of Zhou, who did a great job in 10th. In fact, 2/10 is the difference between pretty much all of that midfield pack, who would be 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th and 15th and out, and the top 10.
So, Ferrari 1 and 2, Sainz and Leclerc. Verstappen 3rd, Hamilton 4th, Perez 5th. Russell, Alonso, Norris, Gasly and Zhou, the top 10. Vettel, Bottas, Tsunoda, Stroll, Albon, the top 15. Eliminated, Magnussen, Ricciardo, Ocon, Schumacher and Latifi, Jenny Gow.
Yeah, and Schumacher already in the garage and out of car, having a few kind of slaps on the back from some of his team members. And I just wondered, Jolyon, team radio, Magnussen?
Out of the track limits. Yeah, just have a look at some of the laps. Who knows?
Copy.
Where was that earlier this year that Perez in Austria didn't get spotted? His track limits for ages, did it? And I'm sure there was somewhere else where everybody just sits in the car now and just waits.
Someone once had a reprieve, so now they all stay in and just wait. Guys, just quickly check everyone ahead of me's lap and see. But so far, no more deletions.
Hamilton got one deleted at turn 19. Didn't affect him though, but it knocked a couple of tenths off his time. Jenny, do carry on.
Yeah, sorry. Schumacher got out of the car and was consolated? That doesn't sound
Consoled?
right. Consoled, thank you. I'm so sorry. By his team.
Consolationed.
And I just wonder, Jolyon, at a time like this when a driver is very much under pressure for their seat, is a spin, would that be enough to just be the final nail in the coffin? I mean, it must be so tough. I can't believe the pressure that these guys are under when it comes to keeping their seats or trying to keep their seats. And you've got someone like Nico Hülkenberg, who's in his Aston Martin kit at the moment, walking around the paddock. Oh, it's just so unpleasant.
Yeah, it's not good for Mick, obviously, because he wants to be there and he's 19th out of 20. You never know what's the final nail in the coffin, and he could pull out a points finish tomorrow and it might save his career. So you never know what's the final nail of his coffin. He will be kicking himself because actually he had the pace to get through, I think. His first run was good to be 12th, and he needed to find a couple of tenths to be ahead of his teammate and get ahead of Alex Albon. There was a chance there for Mick, I think, to get through without that spin. Obviously he was trying to search for the final little bit. And in fact, he'd already run a couple of sets of tyres, hadn't he, to be there. So he was trying to find just a little bit more in the end, and lost it. He'll be kicking himself for that, and he'll know the pressure and everything that's at stake.
So second part of qualifying will be getting underway in a few moments' time. Sainz and Leclerc, the two quickest, ahead of Max Verstappen by 0.6 of a second in the end, that lap from Carlos Sainz. So that was pretty big. We'll see what gets replicated in Q2 now as the wheels start to go on the Aston Martins as they get ready to head out.
Magnussen's still sitting in the car. He's 16th, but he is not getting out. Do you think there's one of those drivers out there that's just done a late improvement and is just thinking, don't look at my lap, don't look at my lap?
Well, did Magnussen say check the other laps?
He did, yeah.
Yeah, so Magnussen's engineers now on 2 times speed on F1 TV, going through all of the laps and the onboards.
They'll have a team of people that will be just quickly sifting through what's going on, but I mean, if you're doing that, you don't have a lot of faith in the stewards, do you?
I'll leave that one open-ended. Nearly time for the second part of qualifying. Hamilton got his lap time deleted, as I say, for track limits. He was fourth anyway, but he was a couple of tenths quicker on his second run. Interesting that but it was the same set of tyres for Hamilton, so he didn't use 2 sets. He just went out again. Green light open, green light on at the end of the pit lane, so the pit lane is open. And the battle to get into Q3 is going to be very, very interesting indeed. Lando Norris did another good lap in the McLaren. Suddenly he's up there in 8th place after McLaren had looked a little bit potentially off the pace. Jenny?
Yeah, I'm just trying. I mean, I don't carry the sporting regulations around with me all of the time, so I apologise, but I have tried to get some clarity on pole. So because Leclerc has a 10-place grid penalty, I believe if he was fastest in qualifying today, he would still go through the protocol and the whole being awarded the tyre, but he wouldn't get pole tomorrow. So he'd get the pole award, but then the person who starts on pole is the one who starts on pole. So it feels once again like...
Jenny, I do have clarity on that from the FIA, because I asked
this is from the FIA, though.
Okay,
so what's your clarity? Because it seems like it's more clear than mine.
No, that's clear, Jenny.
The official pole position is the person who starts on pole, not the person. If Leclerc qualifies fastest today, he is not the official pole position winner in the records.
Oh, I thought he was.
According to the FIA.
I thought they'd changed that. I thought they'd just changed that.
But maybe that's the unofficial pole. Is there an unofficial pole and an official pole?
I don't know, but the one that counts towards the pole trophy that we're now getting all exercised about, but we're not really exercised about at all.
It's pole trophy.
It's for the stats. That's what I live for the stats. Because I thought it changed after Michael Schumacher.
Well, according to the official
2012.
F1 communications boss for the FIA, if Charles Leclerc qualifies on pole today, he will not be classified as the pole position winner at the 2022 US Grand Prix.
Unless it was a sprint race.
It's not a sprint race, so let's just park that one.
If it was a sprint race, would he get pole?
It's a really good question, because because the grid penalty doesn't come into place till the Grand Prix, does it?
But then the only man to get pole isn't the sprint race. We decided that the only pole sitter is the person who starts the race on Sunday in pole position. So we clarified that.
No, but I thought we changed it.
No.
Now.
I thought it was changed after the sprint, so that the fastest qualifier
is the pole position.
The pole is the fastest qualifier.
That's who gets the stat.
But not the official pole for the trophy. So there's some sort of indiscretion there between the two.
I can't believe we've found some kind of complicated loophole that doesn't quite make sense and cover all scenarios in the FIA sporting regulations.
We found the loophole that everyone's pouring through. I still don't get. Pole position is just the one that starts on pole. That's what pole is. Why did it become a big thing with the sprint?
Because I think pole position should be given to the person who qualifies fastest.
No, that's a different thing.
The penalty should be irrelevant to who gets pole position in terms of you are the fastest qualifier, aren't you?
No.
You get an engine-related grid penalty. That doesn't stop the fact that you were the quickest qualifier.
Well, maybe you got a grid penalty because you got a new engine in, and you're taking advantage out of that.
Now that is a good point.
Pole is just the one that starts on pole. Ridiculous. There used to be aggregate qualifying back in the day. 2005 started with 2 qualifying sessions. The fastest qualifier might not have been on pole back then, but we didn't complain about it. It might have just had the best average across 2.
Back in the day, you could have put 3 litres of fuel in, qualified on pole, and then just had to pit at the end of the first lap. Does that make you the fastest qualifier?
No, but if you start on pole, you start on pole.
11 minutes and 15 seconds to go. Everybody out on track now by Carlos Sainz, and we'll bring you some lap times when they're on the board. Jenny Gao.
Kevin Magnussen has just come to get weighed at the FIA garage. He's in a really nice, they've done a really nice Haas outfit this weekend with lots of stars and spangles on it. But he's finally given up the hope that someone was going to get booted out of qualifying for track limits, and he's out.
Yeah, I think it's It's everybody out on circuit now, including Carlos Sainz, who's just left the pit lane, enjoying going out last in this session. Carlos Sainz. Alex Albon is going to be the first driver to come through and set a representative lap time. He has gone out Alex Albon, after making it through into the second part of qualifying, he's on a used set of tyres for this first run. In fact, it looks like most people are. Hamilton's out on a new set, as are Russell and Alonso, but that's it. Everybody else is going on a used set of tyres for this first run in the second part of qualifying. Across the line comes Alex Albon, and he does a 37.1, which is 0.2 slower than he managed in the first part of qualifying, as you would expect on a used set of tyres. Yuki Tsunoda coming through now in the AlphaTauri. He too 0.3 slower than he managed in the first part of quali, and he's fractionally slower than Alex Albon. Everybody else on their outlaps or on a flying lap at the moment. As I say, just Hamilton out on a new set of tyres. Hamilton, Russell and Alonso. Interesting that Mercedes have decided to make that decision out of kilter with the rest of the field. Pierre Gasly.
I tried my best, so I was maximum forward, shape 5, pushed all the braking. So, I'm trying my best. If they don't wake up, that's my fault.
I don't know Pierre Gasly that well. It feels like the attitude change since he's leaving the team is remarkable. What a passive-aggressive radio message that was.
You can tell he's off, can't you?
He's done.
So they've got issues with the braking on the AlphaTauri car. It was the same in Japan, where Gasly was also very unhappy about it, as was Tsunoda. They've actually done well as a team to get through Q1. They thought this circuit wouldn't be very good for them. And with Ricciardo struggling, Ocon struggling and Schumacher spinning, it's opened the door for both AlphaTauris to get through. But Gasly's also, whilst Magnus has been sitting in the car waiting to hopefully get back in, Gasly's obviously been remonstrating with his team about the breakability of the car. They've been telling him something, he's gone out and he's proved that doesn't work in one big smoky lockup at the start of Q2. He's not happy. He's been actually really disgruntled with that team for a while, with their strategy, with other things that has been happening. But now he's leaving, he's just airing his dirty laundry, isn't he?
We're in the second part of qualifying. It was a Ferrari 1-2 in the first part, with Carlos Sainz ahead of Charles Leclerc. We're only 8 minutes away from getting into the pole position shootout. Verstappen is looking strong in the Red Bull, but Ferrari look like they're there or thereabouts. Leclerc does have a 10-place grid drop, so in reality it's going to be Verstappen versus Sainz for pole position, unless Mercedes can pull something out of the bag, and George Russell has just gone quickest. So we've got 7 minutes left in this second part of qualifying in Austin. Across the line comes Verstappen. He now goes 0.4 quicker than George Russell. Leclerc is coming into the final corner now at the Andretti. Hamilton goes into third place. Leclerc comes across the line and he goes fastest, a 35.246. It feels like so much time for Ferrari is the final corner, because coming into the final corner on our little mini sectors, it doesn't look as though Leclerc's going to go quicker. Then he gets on the power of the final corner, ping, he's up there just ahead of Verstappen by 0.05 of a second. How often has the gap been 0.05 this weekend? I feel like all the time it's been between 4 and 600. Sainz third, Russell fourth, Perez fifth, Hamilton, Alonso, Bottas, Zhou and Norris the top 10. Those were used tyres for the top 3.
That's good pace, really good pace. Shows the track's improving all the time. Sebastian Vettel, has he gone over track limits, exit turn 9? Yes, he has. And that time has been deleted for Vettel. The times are close, aren't they? For a circuit that's not short or medium in length, they are really close. Half a tenth. 20 corners.
I'm done. I'm Gasly now. I'm done. Get through these next 2 races and I'm off. That isn't true, by the way, everybody. 6 minutes and 20 seconds to go. Leclerc quickest, Verstappen second, Sainz third, Russell fourth, Perez fifth, Hamilton, Alonso, Bottas, Zhou, Norris the top 10. Eliminated at the moment would be Albon, Tsunoda and Stroll. Gasly has no lap time after his lockup. Sebastian Vettel has no lap time after it was deleted.
The thing for Gasly, some of his points in the last races or the last year have been true on the strategy, and it's so many times he's come on, and because it's an AlphaTauri that's fighting for minor points, they're not obvious blunders like Ferrari have done fighting for race wins that people talk about. But Gasly has been right to be a little bit peeved at times with the strategy, but being so public and just criticising the team so publicly is not a great thing to do, because Alpine will be looking at this, where Gasly's going for next year. They'll be thinking, oh, he's a bit of a handful, isn't he, this driver that we thought was actually really nice and leading the team well.
Yeah.
And now they're thinking, is he going to be a bit of a handful in the team for next year? Fernando Alonso's got a big reputation now as being, on occasion, a disruptive force in a team because of some of his antics in previous teams. At McLaren again, with the McLaren-Honda relationship. And other teams have looked at that. Red Bull historically have looked at that and thought, I don't know if we definitely want that in our team. So they haven't picked him.
Less than 5 minutes to go. Alonso going to Aston Martin next year. So that'll be another team ticked off the list for Alonso.
And you're absolutely right about the final corner. Just in a little bit of corner analysis, and Leclerc is a tenth and a half faster than Verstappen in the final corner. Later on the brakes, better on the exit, vis-a-vis, loads of lap time. Great observation.
Thank you. Verstappen was complaining yesterday in practice as well about grip in low-speed corners, and probably the third slowest corner on the track at turn 20 at the Andretti. 4 minutes and 15 seconds to go. Jenny Gao.
Yeah, just a reminder, by the way, of grid penalties. So Zhou is +5. We also have +5 for Perez, +10 for Leclerc, and +5 for Alonso. So just bear that in mind when we get into the meaty part of qualifying. And also worth bearing in mind that this race has never been won from anywhere but the front row. So there we go.
Never. I hate those stats.
Why? Why do
They're a bit
just
gloomy, aren't they?
my stats or the stats?
No, the front row stat. It's a bit like Barcelona's one that notoriously gets one from pole or second at the front row.
They're also stats that inevitably end up not being true because someone breaks them somewhere down the line.
And maybe that's exciting because maybe this weekend is the weekend.
Yeah,
where
and if you tell a racing driver those sorts of stats, to just go, I don't care about that.
But then, it'll get broken at some point. But then the stat is still demoralising because then it's only once ever has it been won from outside the front row, which sounds worse.
It took a decade of racing at the Circuit of Americas for someone to win that didn't start on the front row. Who knew that stat was so gloomy? It makes this next 3 minutes of Q2 and 12 minutes of Q3 exhilarating because it will probably define who's going to be winning tomorrow.
And it gets touted as a but there's been lots of position changes, hasn't there? Now I think about it. Like Bottas, there was Hamilton hunting down Bottas a couple of years ago, and then there was Verstappen and Hamilton last year.
The very first race here, Hamilton hunted down Vettel and passed him. That was a really, really good race.
There's been some splendid races here. Even that Hamilton-Bottas one, I think Hamilton came from 5th on the grid and was trying to make up for a poor qualifying. So whilst it's been won from the front row, it's not quite as clear-cut as the Barcelona ones. There's been some good races. A lot of overtaking opportunities.
Hopefully we get a good race tomorrow. Gets underway a lot earlier than this qualifying session. I think 2 o'clock in the afternoon the race begins here in Austin. So that is 8 o'clock in the UK. 2 minutes and 10 seconds on the clock. We're on BBC Radio 5 Live to listen to that from 1:45 following the conclusion of 6:06, or you can listen here on the BBC Sport website or the Formula One app or Sirius XM or Amazon AMP, or come into the commentary booth and watch it live. Not that you can. Jolyon's not even allowed in the media centre here. It's highly amusing. They keep kicking him out and not letting him through, and he does a whole Gasly strop, and it's not pretty. It's not pretty. So I have to
I'm at the end of my tether. There's going to be some big changes around here.
But there's another rule anomaly there, because he's not allowed in the media centre, but he has been eating in the media cafe and sitting outside it.
He's made this point to the people on the door a lot. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. I've put him in a bad mood now. Go on, tell us
now I'm reminded about it.
Tell us about Gasly's lap.
Here comes Pierre Gasly. High speed, a lift and then a brake through 4 and turn 5, arcing through 6 and 7, the double right, then into the final left, right and left of the first sector. Got to be careful on turn 9 track limits, and Gasly's good through there. Vettel wasn't earlier on, and it's a personal best in the first sector for Gasly. All cars out on track apart from the Ferraris and Sergio Perez.
Onto the little short shift for Gasly as he comes out onto the back straight. His first sector is reasonable, slower than Norris, slower than Tsunoda, slower than Stroll, so actually only quicker than Sebastian Vettel, so not a great first sector for Gasly. It's reasonable in the context of it's quite close to everyone else, but he was not close to the apex at turn 12.
Well, it's a big braking corner, isn't it? Turn 12, the biggest stop on the circuit, and he missed his apex in too deep, and now he's scrabbling for some grip through the following 13, 14, and now 15. The tight left-hander, 3 more corners to go, the quadruple right-hander and 2 lefts.
Albon has jumped up to 8th, so he's the first driver across the line, jumps up into 8th position on a 36.3, and the other lap times are about to come in. Tsunoda goes slower than Alex Albon. Next across the line with the checker flag out is going to be Gasly. Gasly goes slower than Tsunoda and Albon. Vettel is going to be next through. He's improving. Tsunoda could be in a bit of danger. I think Gasly's in quite a lot of danger, although Tsunoda's just had his lap time deleted, I think. Up goes into 9th place Sebastian Vettel. Bottas is improving, Zhou's improving, Norris improving, and Stroll improving too.
Stroll's on a great lap. Up he goes to 7th place. Lance Stroll could be booking himself into Q3. Vettel's only 10th and behind him and knocked out by Norris.
So Norris up into 9th. Albon is on the bubble in 10th position. Vettel and Gasly eliminated. It's just the 2 Alfa Romeos left to come through. So Norris and Albon are both under a bit of pressure. Alonso, Stroll, Hamilton and above are going to be through. Here comes Norris, it's 10th place. He just pushes Albon out, but he might not be going through depending on what Zhou is doing as he comes into the left-hander of turn 19 now, Zhou. Fernando Alonso improves to jump up into 7th position, but it's going to be Zhou or Norris that will be eliminated. Here comes Zhou Guanyu. Norris is out. Both Alfa Romeos make it through at the part of the season where they really need to show a turn of speed. They've managed to show a turn of speed. Norris eliminated in 11th, Albon out in 12th, Vettel out in 13th, Gasly 14th, and 15th for Yuki Tsunoda.
First of all, Bottas chimed in ahead of Norris by just 0.02 of a second. That was the defining gap. And then Zhou has done a brilliant job. Both parts of this qualifying session, he's been ahead of Valtteri Bottas. Really good job. Both Alfa Romeos through. But their big rivals in the championship now are Aston Martin, who have got Lance Stroll through as well.
Lap time deleted for Zhou Guanyu. And that could be a reprieve for Lando Norris. Turn 12, so the exit of the hairpin left-hander. And I think Zhou is going to get shuffled out here, and Norris will be back in to the third part of qualifying. Yes, there it goes. Zhou down to 14th place after a really good lap. But it will be Norris that advances through into the final part of qualifying, along with Bottas, Stroll, Alonso, Perez, Hamilton, Russell, Sainz, Verstappen and Leclerc. Just as we were saying, what a good lap for Zhou.
Fine margins, but it's the second time in this qualifying session he's had a lap deleted, actually. He had one in Q1 that went as well, Zhou. Missed a bit of running earlier on, so he's been on the back foot. Actually, to put that lap in was a great effort, but he did it by going over the edge of the track. And thus it does not stand.
Pierre Gasly eliminated then in 13th in the end, 14th for Zhou and 15th for Yuki Tsunoda. Gasly had another lock-up into turn 1. And
Gasly's lap was actually really lousy. It was a mile away.
Here we go, this will be fun.
Why do we keep having this problem? Turn 111 is the same second weekend in a row.
Again, he's talking about the brakes. He missed the apex at 11 on his lap. It was a really shabby lap that Gasly put in, and he's furious with the team. He was 0.3 off Tsunoda, but Tsunoda had his lap time deleted, so Gasly's ahead of him, and he's ahead of Zhou because Zhou's lap time was deleted. So even though he was adrift of everyone else, he'll start 13th, which isn't the end of the world for Pierre.
So Charles Leclerc, the quickest driver. We're just getting a look at Zhou's breach of track limits, got onto the brakes, turned into the left-hander, hooked it all up. Oh, it's marginal, but it is. So
sloppy on the exit of 12. Wasn't fighting a massive correction, but was just eager to open the steering and get on the gas. Tsunoda's was exit of 9. They're both by fine margins, but them's the rules.
I just want to say it's a great job by Alex Albon in 11th place in the Williams. On Thursday, he was saying he didn't think this would be a great track for the Williams because it's not got it's not great in high downforce specification. and there he is just outside the top 10. And his teammate Nicholas Latifi's down in 20th. That's his best qualifying position since the Belgian Grand Prix, which is a low downforce track and suits to Williams. So very impressive. And let's not forget, it's only a couple of races since he had that medical emergency after having an appendectomy where he had respiratory failure.
Oh, that was like listening to an episode of Casualty. That was. You spouted out those big words with great aplomb. I'm impressed. Jenny Gow?
I certainly won't be able to do that. Alex Albon, though, has got lovely blonde hair this weekend. He went to the hairdressers with his girlfriend, and she said, go on, just get something done. And Alex, being Alex, who's had a lovely red flash at times, after he went to Thailand, actually, he did that this year. But now he's gone blonde. Blondes clearly have more fun.
So, in the commentary box, I'm sitting alongside a man who's also, I think you've copied...
How are you bringing this up?
I think you've copied the Alex Albon hair.
This is not good radio. This is not good radio. Right, we're going to be getting underway with the... We're getting underway with...
Jack's had his hair done.
He's playing it down. He's been playing it down all week, but everyone's noticed it. I think you've caught Albon mania with the blonde highlights.
I've had a lot of people in the paddock asking if I've had my tips done.
Have you?
No.
Well, Lewis Hamilton asked Alex Albon in the press conference on Thursday if he was blonde all over.
Yeah.
And he didn't get the joke, Alex. Not immediately, anyway.
It's the BBC's chief F1 writer, Andrew Benson, who, when he gets back from Austin, will be receiving his P45 with comments like that on the radio. But we'll be getting underway with the final party. I haven't highlighted my hair. If I had highlighted my hair, I wouldn't necessarily be ashamed of it, but I'm just saying I have not. What I've done is I've stopped using product, and so the product gives it a bit of a wet look, and so that makes it look darker. So because I've stopped that, and I've been in the sun a lot this summer, that's why it looks a bit blonder. I'm not going Jacques Villeneuve on us. Well, Sam Bird actually. Sam Bird, he's had some terrible hair.
Hair's not really something for me to comment on, is it?
No, but you've been doing your best. Jenny Gow.
Pierre Gasly was just in the weighing room at scrutineering, and he hadn't taken his helmet off, actually. Most of the drivers take their helmet off. They stand there with it in their hand on the little scale, get measured, get a piece of paper that tells them how much they weigh with their suit and helmet, the boots on, and then they trundle off to go to speak to the media. But actually, he was just standing there looking at it. So on one side there's a TV screen, on the other side there's a timing screen, and he's just standing there looking at the timing screen with his helmet on, shaking his head. There's so much pent-up anger in Pierre Gasly at the moment when it comes to on-track shenanigans. He's just so unhappy. And I had a really good chat with him yesterday. We were talking about the findings from the FIA about what happened in Suzuka. He had my phone, he was scrolling through everything. He's a really good guy, really nice guy, but put him in that car, he's an angry young man.
Part of it is nice to see the determination that he still has coming into race 19 of a 22 race season. 1 month out, he's fighting for nothing anymore with this team. He's off to Alpine, he's won a race for them, he's got them on the podium, and it's nice to see that he cares this much about still delivering. It's just, the question is it wise to do it so publicly, to be slating his team?
Well, you know that team reasonably well, Joey, and there's a couple of people in that team who definitely won't tolerate that sort of behaviour when he goes to Alpine next year.
And there's already question marks. It's a French team with 2 French drivers for next year, Ocon and Gasly, who have had an up and down relationship in their career as well. And there was question marks when Gasly was being rumoured to go there back in the summer of whether they would have a harmonious relationship. 2 similar age Frenchmen who came through the ranks together and didn't always get on. And it's going to be, it could be a tricky management scenario for Alpine.
But they've excelled in management scenarios over the last year. So what makes you think they'll struggle next year? It's going to be tough. I'm so interested to see how. I think it's got a bit powder keggy. That team, that relationship, those 2 drivers next year. Very interested to see what occurs.
They're on paper decent drivers for the team.
Yeah.
Compared to what they could have had with no Piastri, no Alonso. Gasly's a race winner. He's been what seems like a decent team leader at AlphaTauri. it's just got the potential to go either way. And Ocon has been good with Alpine, he's been good with Renault, and the team like him, but it was quite fiery with Perez in his first stint with Racing Point, and that counted against him for a while as well. And he's just rebuilding that with a harmonious relationship with Fernando Alonso. They get on quite well and have supported each other for Ocon's win or Alonso's podium.
Yeah, they had a big hug, didn't they? I think after Hungary. Right. I'm very sorry. I never did a sync up at any point during this qualifying session. Really, really sorry. But we have 10 minutes and 20, 19, 18, 17 seconds left in this final part of qualifying. Everybody out on circuit bar Lance Stroll, and everybody on new tyres bar Alonso, Bottas and Norris. Jenny.
Tell you what, the wind's picked up again as well. A crosswind as you come down the start, finish straight, just rippling the flags quite violently, and a bit of cloud cover as well. So that glare coming around the final corner seems to have gone for the moment.
Yeah, it's gone up to 7 metres per second, the wind. It was pretty gusty earlier at 5 metres per second, and the huge stars and stripes at the top of turn 1 is very much flying. It's a really cool flag, actually, up at turn 1. We need more flags. There's a big one in Baku, isn't there?
It flies really well for such a big flag.
Yeah.
Must be very light.
Yeah, I don't know. There's also the Texas flag out there, isn't there? That you can see. A flag's light.
Norris must be to fly that well.
Norris is chucking this McLaren around. Really enjoying watching him come through the S's and then up through the left-hander of turn 9, dropping down the hill towards turn 11 that'll take him out onto the back straight. Leclerc, Sainz, Hamilton, Perez on outlaps. Verstappen's just come through sector 1, and he's a bit slower than Bottas, even though he's on a new set of tyres. So that's an interesting one for Max Verstappen. As down the back straight comes Lando Norris, and Leclerc now starts his lap. Russell has bailed out of this lap.
Norris, for someone that's been really on the edge of rear grip the whole way through, is actually not slow through the first sector. He's within half a tenth of Max Verstappen, so maybe he speaks more volumes of Verstappen's pace through the first part of the lap. He's picking up pace now through the middle sector, Max Verstappen. Leclerc just starting a lap now and will surely go quicker than Verstappen in the first sector. Comes through now and he's 0.3 up.
Okay, so good first sector then for Charles Leclerc. Bottas across the line to do a 1 minute 36.7, but he is on a used set of tyres, Valtteri Bottas, so I expect him to go quicker on his second run. Here comes Norris. He comes through to do a 36.5. The same is true of Norris with regards to tyres. Then Alonso goes through to do a 36.1, and the same is true of him with regards to tyres. So let's see what Verstappen can do. Out of the final corner, out across the line, and it is a 35.0. 3/10 quicker than he managed in Q2, but Leclerc is going quicker, as is Lewis Hamilton after the first sector. In fact, Leclerc, Sainz, Hamilton and Perez all the same tenth of a second in sector 1.
So Verstappen's made a mistake in the first sector that's cost him a chunk of time there. The rest of his lap was decent, similar to Leclerc through the middle sector, quicker than Sainz. Sainz a tenth down on Charles Leclerc. Perez slower than both of them by a chunk. It's the two Ferraris at the moment, and then Hamilton's the fastest through the middle sector.
Here comes Leclerc through the final corner at the Andretti, out in front of the commentary box and across the timing beam, and it's a 34.6, more than 4/10 quicker than Verstappen, and it's only 3/10 that Verstappen lost in sector 1. Perez jumps up into third place, slower than his teammate. Hamilton's done the fastest middle sector. He's about to come into the final two corners. Sainz goes up into second place, a tenth slower than Charles Leclerc, but what is Hamilton going to do? Comes across the line now, and it is third for Hamilton, ahead of Max Verstappen. So after the first runs in qualifying, Leclerc's on provisional pole, even though he would have his penalty. So therefore Sainz would basically be on provisional pole, with Hamilton, Verstappen and Perez the rest of the order. Russell is still out, and he's done a first sector that's okay. His second sector is 3/10 away from Hamilton.
Yeah, he's missing a bit of pace on this lap, George Russell. Coming through the quadruple right-hander. He's been missing a few tenths compared to Hamilton all weekend, and it doesn't look like he's finding it right now. But the Ferraris are so quick in the final sector. That's actually where they both made the pace up compared to Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton was quicker through the first 2/3 of the lap. Russell crosses the line, and he's 7/10 down on Leclerc, 6th place.
It's a bit... We'll wait and see what Russell's got in his second run. But broadly speaking, bad weekend for Russell. I'd almost feels like one of his worst of the season. We'll see what happens in the second run in Q3, don't get me wrong.
Well, look, Russell, in qualifying pace is closer to Hamilton than anybody's been since Fernando Alonso. He's half a tenth off Hamilton on average over the season, but the trend is very much in Hamilton's favour. He's been faster in the last 5 qualifying sessions.
I feel like Russell's season is petering out a little. There was so much Russell really when he came in and was not only a match for Lewis Hamilton but was ahead of him through the first 5-6 races fairly consistently up until I think Montreal time was a real shift for Mercedes. And Hamilton finally they were messing around with the setup a lot. They were trying a lot of things at Mercedes to try and understand the poor performance of their car, and it seemed like Hamilton was doing the brunt of the work with that whilst Russell was trying to bed himself in with the team. And once Lewis shifted to just thinking, let's not mess around the whole time, let's just try and work normally with what we have, he has been more consistently ahead of Russell in terms of pace, and he's been unlucky at times as well. He's made a few errors. The Spa one where he took himself out from a good chance there wasn't great. The Singapore crash wasn't great, but overall I do feel like he's established himself again as the team leader there.
Yeah, he's been unlucky with the safety car a couple of times. It happened to him in Melbourne, for example. He would have finished ahead of Russell if there hadn't been for particular safety car timing. Same in Miami. And then there was the issue with the team tactics in another safety car at Zandvoort, of course, which he also lost out from. Overall, Hamilton's definitely the slightly better Mercedes driver this year, even though Russell's probably going to end up ahead in the championship because of that bad luck. But let's not diminish the quality of the job that Russell has done. He's been, as I said to you a minute ago, he's been Hamilton's closest rival since Fernando Alonso as a teammate, and he's been about as close as Alonso was. So that's really, really strong season for Russell.
Oh yeah, it's still been an absolute breakthrough season, hasn't it? It's still established him as a star of the future and the man to lead Mercedes in time. And this time last year he was in a Williams and we had not really a big clue what he could do. The one-off in Sakir, but there were so many oddities about that weekend. He's done a great job. It's just that Hamilton has asserted probably that number one status back, which was very much, it was the big debate in the first part of the season. Is Hamilton sort of on his way out in the bigger picture of it? Is the new wave coming through? Hamilton's done a good job pace-wise to get it back.
3 minutes and 22 seconds on the clock. Verstappen is already out. He's gone out very, very early. The Ferraris are still in the pit lane. Jenny.
Yeah, I'm just about to get squashed by a barrier and now I don't know what to do. I'll go forward, that'll be fine. I think who was it that was just going out? Was it the Mercedes? I got slightly distracted by a man trying to lower a barrier. But just when Hamilton came across the line there, okay, he might have only been in third position, the crowd in the grandstand, absolutely delirious. I mean, it was like he'd got pole. It was amazing.
Yeah, very popular in the States, Hamilton. Less than 3 minutes to go. The provisional order at the moment. Well, it is the order, but the provisional grid. Except it wouldn't be because Leclerc's got a grid penalty. But it is Leclerc quickest, Sainz second, Hamilton third, Verstappen fourth, Perez fifth, Russell, Stroll, Alonso, Norris and Bottas the top 10. Stroll has done his lap now on new tyres. He went out in the middle part of the session, did his lap, and now we'll see what Alonso, Norris and Bottas can do in that fight to be best of the rest in 7th place.
Verstappen went out early, but he's trundling across the line and he's using it as just a prep lap. I think that first lap to get the tyres in. So maybe he's still trundling actually. Has he got he's got an issue? No, he's building up a bit of speed in the first sector again. So I think maybe that says he wasn't happy with his tyre warm-up and maybe that explains his lousy first sector on that run. Without that, his other sectors were very close.
Can't remember the last time that we've had someone's done an out prep and then a push in a Q3. Maybe he's got enough fuel for this many laps. After Singapore, maybe that's why he's going really slowly, because he wants to do a prep lap but needs to not use a huge amount of fuel. I'm being sort of moderately genuine with that suggestion, but we'll see.
He will have fuel. They'll have planned what they're doing now. It wouldn't have been caught out again by the Singapore thing, I am sure.
1 minute and 25 seconds to go. And
what a chance this is for Sainz.
Yeah.
He is effectively your provisional pole man. Leclerc showing the pace of the Ferrari, 10th and a half up on his teammate, but Leclerc takes 10 places on the grid for tomorrow. Perez takes 5. This is Sainz on pole right now from Hamilton. Verstappen, who's been marching away with wins for fun, will only start third. This is a great opportunity for Sainz.
At a race that's never been won from outside the front row.
Well, it's Sainz or Hamilton at this rate.
Yeah.
It could all change right now.
Will it change? We're about to find out. Verstappen, Stroll has returned to the pits. Verstappen is now at the back of the queue. Bottas, Norris and Alonso have started their laps. Charles Leclerc, a little glance in his left-hand wing mirror in his scarlet Ferrari as he turns through the final corner now at the Andretti and goes flying up towards turn 1. Currently the quickest driver. A 10-place grid drop for the Ferrari man, though, means that it's currently Sainz who would take pole position for the United States Grand Prix. 15 seconds on the clock. Perez does the fastest first sector of anybody in the Red Bull. Leclerc and Sainz about to come through the first sector. Verstappen starts his flying lap now. He will be the penultimate front runner across the line. Then it will be Hamilton. So the order will be Perez, Leclerc, Sainz, Verstappen, Hamilton across the line. Sainz does a quick sector 1 as well, and Leclerc is quicker, and they're both quicker than Sergio Perez. They're both 2/10 quicker than George Russell in sector 1. Leclerc's coming down the back straight now.
The Ferraris are rapid through the first sector. Verstappen's made a much better first sector, though. He's within a 1/10 of the two Ferraris. Hamilton, not so much. Hamilton's a mile away, actually. 3/10 down in the first sector for Lewis Hamilton. He's not improving. So it's the Leclerc Ferrari, fractionally ahead of the Sainz Ferrari, and Verstappen's Red Bull, all within a 10th through the first sector.
Hamilton's done. Hamilton's had a terrible first sector, 25.8. So he's 3/10 down on Leclerc in sector 1 alone. So he might even have bailed out of this lap. So I don't know what's happened there to Lewis Hamilton in the first sector. Norris goes up into 8th place. Doesn't manage to beat Lance Stroll. But it is Perez, Verstappen, Leclerc, all improving. Perez goes second in the Red Bull. He too has a grid penalty, but he won't be starting on pole position. Through the final corner comes Charles Leclerc, has a little bit of a slide and goes quickest, but he has a grid drop. What can Sainz and Verstappen do? It's not looking great for Sainz. Here he comes across the line, but he gets there. Sainz gets ahead of Leclerc. He's on provisional pole, but Verstappen now is coming into the final two corners, where traditionally the Red Bull has not been quite as strong. Gets on the power, drives towards the line, and it's Carlos Sainz on pole. Carlos Sainz will start on pole position for the United States Grand Prix. Ferrari 1-2, but Leclerc's penalty means that Verstappen will be second on the grid. Lewis Hamilton will be third on the grid. Fourth will be George Russell. Fifth will be Lance Stroll. Great lap from Carlos Sainz, who, broadly speaking, over the course of this year, has been beaten by his teammate Leclerc. Not today.
P1, baby. Good job.
I knew it was coming, guys. I knew it.
He knew it was coming, did Carlos Sainz. And a really strong lap with Silverstone qualifying wet.
Yeah.
So this is his first true, dry, proper pole position.
He's a man that's got so much better as the season's gone on. Started with a few spins, not comfortable in that Ferrari car, and he has been closer to Leclerc, even if Leclerc, I would still say, seems on average the faster driver, more likely to take the poles. Sainz has done him here by 700ths, and they are now much closer. Great job then from Carlos Sainz. We don't have to worry about who's on pole and who's actually on pole, because Sainz doesn't have a penalty. Fastest man will start from the front tomorrow.
Yeah, but does he get the pole for Spa? But anyway.
So, P2, P1 is Sainz.
Yeah, that was
Leclerc's annoyed.
Hey, he's not happy with that lap that he did. He didn't find a huge chunk, Leclerc. They were neck and neck through the first sector. I wonder if Leclerc made a slight mistake in the final sector, and that's where Sainz made up the time on him. Sainz with the fastest final sector of anyone. I think Leclerc's maybe made a little mistake, which has allowed Sainz to just pip him there.
Because again, it didn't look like Sainz was necessarily going to do it. He wasn't nailed on to do it.
No, it wasn't. It was looking tight, and then the final sector, he really made that difference. Verstappen lost out in the final sector in comparison.
Hard luck, Max. 10th off pole. He lost 3/10 in that final sector.
Yeah, it seemed like the low speed I was running out of tires.
Yeah, we tried something.
But it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I can't be quick tomorrow. That's what's most important.
It's Verstappen's chat on the radio.
What a job from Ferrari, though. 1-2.
Yeah.
They've both beaten Max Verstappen in this one. Perez, within a couple of tenths of Verstappen, is a good effort as well. Red Bull 3-4. Hamilton didn't improve, still stayed quicker than Russell, but only by 400ths in the end with a late improvement from George. Stroll, great effort from Stroll in 7th as well. Best of the rest in the Aston Martin. It's a shame for Ferrari, though, that Leclerc has that 10th-place grid penalty.
Yeah, it certainly is. And a shame for the race, actually, to be honest, but we'll see what unfolds tomorrow. 8 o'clock in the UK, 2 o'clock in the afternoon here in Austin. 3 poles in the last 4 races for Ferrari. And this time it's Carlos Sainz that will start at the front of the grid. Has there must have been a season before where only 2 teams have won a race. I don't know when off the top of my head, but that can't be a new record that would happen this year.
Wasn't there a season where the McLarens won every race apart from Monza?
Bar one, 1988, yeah, of course. So that was that. And that was won by Ferrari, actually. I think that was a Gerhard Berger, Michele Alboreto 1-2. Anyway, it has happened before, even if it does happen again. Sainz on pole position then. It's been coming, he said on the radio. Charles Leclerc 2nd, Verstappen 3rd, Perez 4th. Hamilton 5th, Russell 6th, Stroll 7th. Really good job from the Aston Martin man, Stroll, today. 8th for Norris, 9th for Alonso, 10th for Valtteri Bottas. But we will now hear from the top 3 after qualifying. Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen. Even though Leclerc won't start there, it will be the front row of the grid for Verstappen tomorrow. But Carlos Sainz secures pole position for the United States Grand Prix after a really impressive lap. Leclerc frustrated, but we will start by hearing from Max Verstappen, who will be on the front row of the grid tomorrow. The current world champion is speaking to Danica Patrick down on the grid in Austin. He'll be 2nd on the grid for tomorrow's Grand Prix.
Hi, Max. It's been a very emotional day for the whole team at Red Bull to lose Dietrich. Tell me how you're feeling right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's been hard news, I think, for everyone. I think what he has meant for, of course, Red Bull, but also for the sport, and especially also for me, what he has done for me in general, my career so far, and in general, my life. You know, it's, really tough. It's a very tough day, and we tried to, of course, give it everything today in qualifying. Unfortunately, we missed out by a little bit, but there's still a race ahead, of course, and we're going to try to make him proud tomorrow.
What's it going to take to win from the 2nd row? Everybody that's won here has won from the 1st row, with obviously how big this would be to get your 13th win in the season, and also with the news today. To win tomorrow, what are you going to have to do?
Well, I think our car normally in the race is a bit stronger than qualifying, and I think already today in qualifying it was very fine margins. If you could switch your tires on a bit better, I think that would have made a difference. But nonetheless, we are there, and I'm expecting a good race tomorrow.
Okay, good luck. Charles, tell me about that lap. This is a tricky track. There's fast, there's slow stuff. How hard is it to put one whole lap together, and is there something out there that could have been different that would have set you on the pole?
Oh, it is obviously really difficult, especially with the wind. The car changes a lot from laps to laps, but overall I did my best. The last lap wasn't the best. Carlos did a better job today and deserves to be on pole. I'll be starting a bit further back because of the penalty, but the goal is to try and come back at the front as quickly as possible.
This is a sad day for everyone with the loss of Dietrich today. Tell me about what it means to have someone like that in the sport that believes in racing and everything that we love so much, to lose someone like that.
It is incredibly sad, but apart from everything that he has done in his career, which is incredible, he's a human being, and it is a really sad loss for motorsport. So all my thoughts goes to their family and friends.
How much are you thinking about winning the race tomorrow versus the championship? Is there anything that you plan to do different? Are you going to be careful in any way because the championship is so close for 2nd place?
Yeah, I'll give my best. As always, again, we are starting, I think, 12th or 11th with the engine penalty that we have. So, I'll give my best. No crazy risks, but if there's an opportunity, I'll be here to take it.
All right. Good luck.
Thank you.
What an incredible lap. Tell me, walk me through the lap. How was that for you? Were you in flow?
It was fun, a lot of fun. Very tricky out there with these winds that we have today. So gusty that every corner is a bit of an adventure with these cars. You don't know how much grip you're gonna get or how much grip to expect, but I managed to put together a good lap without mistakes, and pole position that it was a long time coming after a few qualies in the dry, getting very close to it, but not quite getting there.
What does it take to have a good day on Sunday with how easy it is to make mistakes? Like, what is it that you're going to have to put together to stay where you're at?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I think for tomorrow, Red Bull are still favorites. I think they normally have the better race pace. They normally get us in the race because they have a very, Max does a great job, and Red Bull has a very good car in race stream. But we're going to do everything we can to try and stay ahead tomorrow and win the race, which would be an amazing way to start these last 4 races.
And sure, we'd all be cheering for you. Congratulations.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
So it is Carlos Sainz who will start in pole position for the United States Grand Prix tomorrow. Alongside him will be Max Verstappen, the 2 times world champion, looking to seal out the Constructors' Championship for Red Bull on what has been a very emotional day for that Milton Keynes-based team as their co-founder passed away. It was announced just before qualifying. Dietrich Mateschitz died at the age of 78. And he will be remembered, I'm sure, tomorrow as the race gets underway. 7:45, we are live on BBC Radio 5 Live. It will be Sainz from Verstappen, and then a second row of Hamilton and Russell. Make sure you join us for all of the action. Thank you so much for listening today. There'll be a podcast on the way. You can subscribe and download a little bit later on. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.